The meeting is okay. I've got the live stream notification.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So-
Now this is the right one. I will try to make it better. Hello, guys. Thank you for watching us. My name is Alfonso. Today with me is Nina, all the way from London. Nina, hi.
Hi.
So this is my second live interview with in English, but I'm very happy to have you today and discover more about your music and your artistic endeavors. So to all the people out there watching, your comments are very much encouraged and welcomed. I would love to read them to Nina, and I'm sure that she will love to hear it to hear from you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just make sure that is live streaming. Yeah, we are live now. So
yeah.
Nina, I'm from Mexico. We are a group of friends that devote our time to discover and suggest and promote in our own way the new age of street music from all over the world. Recently, I discovered your band Lowen, and I was enchanted by it, by your fusion of sounds. And this is why Retumba exists, to talk about that, to discuss what is new today. And well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to hear that you found us on the other side of the world. That's so cool how music can do that.
Yeah. And well, please be patient with my English. I have something prepared for you. I have to make it fun, interesting. I may throw you a random question here and there just for fun, but I would like to discuss, all things on regards to you and your upcoming album. Do Not Go to War with the Demons of Mazandaran. I'm getting better at it.
It's amazing.
Due to be released October 4th, right?
That's correct, October 4th.
So I will ask you all about it, but first, since I learned about your podcast show, Serpent Temple, in which you do interviews and review artists, and I learned something interesting as a format that is really exciting. Is you do a side card reading, right? Can you explain a little bit of that?
Of course. So it's really a really fun way to talk to anybody, but especially like creative people. It's similar to tarot. It's like a card deck, and each card in the deck is based on one of the Jungian archetypes. So you have like father, mother, death, life, birth. So you kind of do like a little spread, and you can ask people really interesting questions about what they think about death, or how the libido affects the way that they live their life and things like that. So it's a really fun way to talk to people. It's just great to interview people, as I'm sure you know. It's really fun to get to ask people questions.
Yeah. I'm a very curious person, so I like to go straight to the source of my taste in music. People is already saying hi. Diego is extremely excited for this interview. Been waiting for this. Hector is saying to you hello and greetings from Mexico.
Hello, Hector and Diego.
And Ivan can't wait for the album.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Ivan.
So we discovered Lowen recently. Well, I discovered Lowen recently with your newest, your first single of this album. I won't try to pronounce that song, sorry. But
it's okay.
I discovered also the album cover, which is absolutely beautiful and devastating, the level of detail. So I was very excited to share the news and the info with our audience, and people reacted really well to it. And we have like I do some live streamings in which I take sips of coffee, and discover what is new releases. And we have covered your two singles, and people is really excited about Lowen.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that.
What can you tell me or tell them to the people who is discovering your music today with these new singles?
Firstly, thank you for being here and listening. It's always an honor when someone listens to your music. So the first single was called Najang Bodhipaya Mazandaran, which is a translation of the album title, Do not go to war with the demons of Mazandaran. And it's about a story in the Persian Book of Kings, which is the Shahnameh. And in the story, there's a king who he's basically lied, well, he's corrupted with lies and truth. And he's told that there's this beautiful land called Mazandaran, and it's filled with demons and wizards and sorcerers, beautiful women and gold and honey and alcohol. And he's told, you know, there's this bounteous land out there in Mazandaran. And the king decides he's going to expand his empire. He's just become king, and he's greedy, and he's young, and he just wants to prove himself. So he decides to invade Mazandaran, and all of his advisors say, do not go to war with the demons of Mazandaran. And it's a really interesting story. There's lots of ups and downs, really interesting things happen. There are characters that are recurring throughout this mythology that actually influence a lot of Western mythology. Like the myth of Hercules comes from the myth of Rostam. So it's a really fun story, and it's, I think, also really relevant because I think all humans make mistakes like this where we think we can do more, or we go to places we shouldn't. We need to work on ourselves before taking things from others. And you know, that applies to politics, and it applies to relationships too. So that's that single. The second single was The Seed That Dreamed of Its Own Creation, which came out a few weeks ago. We have a music video for that one as well, which was really cool. It has a lot of Persian calligraphy, and I'm having someone write like the words woman, life, freedom, and death, and all these things. It's about the apocalypse. It's about the end of the world, but there is poison and hope. I think it's a mixed metaphor of what humans.
Well, that is a very cool interpretation, what you're describing, and I can't wait to discuss all about it later in the conversation. I want to start by focusing on you. I told you this question earlier. Let me ask you again. If you could travel to the past or the future, where would you like to travel to? Past or future?
I've been thinking about it since you asked me. The answer keeps, like, I like the idea of going and hearing ancient music and going to Mesopotamia and ancient Iran, but I think I still want to go to the future. I want to go like 2,000 years into the future and hear what kind of music people are listening to, and what kind of clothes they're wearing, and what language they're speaking, and if they still look like us.
Well, that is an attestament of your curiosity. You don't want to rediscover what you already can learn today, right? You want to discover what lies ahead, the unknown.
The unknown. What about you? Would you go forward or back?
I'm not entirely enthusiastic about the future, but I am, because of that, I'm very intrigued of how it's gonna be, how we are gonna function, what is gonna change about our ways of thinking. You know, what is wrong today could be better in the future. You know, I'm hopeful for the future, I will say. So, and about the past, I know that you have cultural roots in Iran.
Yeah, that's right.
But you were born in the UK, right?
That's right. I was born in the UK. My whole family is Iranian, but I've never been able to go to Iran for political reasons. So if I were to Iran, I would risk execution. If I go to Iran now, having been in a metal band, I would definitely be executed, especially because of the things that I have said about the women life freedom movement, my criticism of the Iranian government, which is a very oppressive, very violent government that has hurt and killed a lot of innocent young women and innocent young men. So yeah, like it's a complicated cultural cross-section that I inhabit. But
talking about the future, I mean, it will be interesting to see your own country, well, Iran, how it goes for them, right? Hopefully it's for the best.
Fingers crossed. I dream of being able to go to Iran. Like, I cry when I think about it on a regular basis. I have Iranian friends that, you know, we have this conversation of, I hope we get to see Iran together one day, and we can perform music there, and that we can love freely there. And, you know, I would love to see family members that I've never been able to see the gravestones of my grandparents. And yeah, it's a really weird thing to like be from somewhere you can't go. and then also not be always accepted. Like when I was growing up, I was not really fully accepted as an English person by a fair number of people. So yeah, it's complicated, and I think that's it's where a lot of my art comes from, is that tension.
Mm. So, but I mean, you can go there, but you bring that culture, that heritage to your own artistic expression, right? Hence,
Exactly.
Lowen, and then
Yeah,
fusion of both cultures.
this is my way of connecting with my culture. I think South America is a really interesting place for that too, because there was a really long period of time where like the indigenous cultures of South America could not practice their culture or speak their languages. And I was really fascinated by that when I visited very briefly 2 years ago, by hearing like the tales of how like the Quechua were not allowed to speak their language, and just I don't know much about the history, but from what I've learned, I think there's definitely something in common there of like having your culture oppressed and not being able to speak is like a huge thing to have that taken from you.
You mentioned earlier about being difficult for you, or not being accepted for a fair amount of people as growing up. How would you describe that experience and the impact in your own life?
It was very difficult for a long time. So my first language was Farsi, which is what most people speak in Iran. I didn't speak English until I went to school. So it was difficult. But we moved from London into the countryside when I was about 5 years old. And the first day of school, I was, the only brown person. And the first thing that happened was a girl came up to me on the playground and called me a racial slur. So immediately I was just subjected to bullying. And after 9/11, it got like twice as bad. And I would get called a lot of like very bad names. The food I would eat would be criticized because I was eating like unusual food by the standards of the other people around me. My hair being curly, my skin being brown, all of these things were on a daily basis, thrown at me in a very negative way. So for a long time, I was really ashamed of how I looked, and of being Iranian. I wanted to like fit in and be English and get to do English things. And even when I tried, it never worked. I didn't really understand why for a long time. And there are parts of me that are very English, but I'm both, if that makes sense. I'm both and neither. So it's really strange. And like there are people like me out there, and I've got to meet them through doing Lowen. But before I got to be in the band, I was alone, and I felt like I was on the edge of everything. I had so much trouble connecting with people and talking to people, and like when I discovered heavy music, I realized that there was a place for people who felt like they didn't belong. So it was perfect.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about how did you discover or were introduced to heavy music, but as I hear you talking about your childhood, it makes sense. How do you remember being introduced, or what bands, or in which situation where you discovered heavy music or extreme music as a whole?
I discovered it by picking up a copy of Kerrang magazine. So it was I was in a shop and I saw the cover and it looked cool. I don't remember who was on the cover, but I remember reading it. I read the whole thing, and I saw there were 2 reviews. One review was for System of a Down. It was Rise Hypnotized, and a band called Akakoka, and they're one called Antichrist. And Akakoka are like a London death metal band with prog influences, and they both System of a Down and Akakoka obviously have lots of Eastern influences. And when I heard their music, I was like, oh my gosh. I found it. Like this is there's both of the things that I love are here. There are those 2 separate parts of me found something like a connecting point, and then I just became obsessed with metal. But there was still something a little bit missing, which is what this Lowen album sounds like, hopefully to a degree. That's and when I met Shem in the front row of an Akakoka concert, our guitarist Shem, which is how we started the band, it was an Akakoka show, and I said to him, I want I've always wanted to hear a Middle Eastern doom metal band. With like, you know, that sounds like Coroner and Bolt Thrower and has like traditional Middle Eastern vocals. And then we made it happen. Took a few years, but we got there.
So when you discover System of a Down and Acker Coke, this happened around the years of 2008, 2004, I don't know. Trying to
It was
guess.
around 2006, I think, 2006,
Okay.
2005. I was about 16. Yeah.
So almost 20 years of being a metalhead.
Yeah.
It's that fateful day, that fateful reading of the Korean magazine.
It's really funny because I actually met the person that wrote that review, that wrote the Akakoka review.
Okay.
And yeah, and I didn't realize that it's Nick from Kerrang, and I didn't realize that he wrote that review until like a year ago, around a year ago now, actually. So it's really funny. And he's in a great band called Witch Sorrow. We're a really good doom band as well.
Okay. And did you thank him?
I did. I definitely did. Yeah, he's responsible for like literally everything that happened after that point. I have him to thank.
And okay, so watching Akercock live or listening to this fusion of Eastern folk influences with metal made you decide to instead of being in the audience, take the stage facing the audience and sing your own songs?
It's complicated. Like I think the bit that made me become a musician was when Shem turned around and told me I was going to be the singer, because I never thought I was going to sing. I never thought I had a good voice or that I was like that much of a musician or a front person. Good, like going on stage still is really scary for me. So it was really feels like an accident, and it still doesn't always feel real. I thought I was just, you know, gonna be the bassist and that I would learn the bass and it would be, you know, difficult but easy, whereas singing was like a whole other
Try to
thing.
hide a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to hide, you know,
behind the singer. So you're telling me that you didn't sing prior to Lowen?
No, I didn't. I would sing in the shower.
Okay.
I was quiet for a few
Only
years,
for you?
I would pretend not to sing in the school choir. So I would stand there and I would just open my mouth and I wouldn't make any noise.
Wow, so I'm astonished to learn that, because I was thinking that you have, you know, some educational background with your own voice.
Not with my voice. I started learning music when I was about 3. So I played, yeah, so I started playing piano, I play violin and saxophone. And I can mess around with like other instruments to a degree, but I never really considered myself like a proper musician, not in the way that someone can pick up a guitar. Like saxophone can sound really cool in metal as can violin, but it's not really like, it's difficult to start a band on the back of a saxophone or a violin, and I haven't played them in a while, so I never thought it would happen.
Let me read some of the comments here. Diego is saying that he hasn't listened to the full album yet, but it has potential to be an outie for him. And as he being someone which is exiled from his homeland, your music and story truly resonate with him.
Oh, that's so sad, but also I'm so happy we have that connection.
And he also has a question for you. Let me read it for you. Regarding the band's formation, I read a lot about Lowen, and one of the things that intrigued me the most is the band's origin. As it is stated that the band formed at an Akercock concert. Okay, you already talk about this. Would you mind going in deep about this? Okay, so you already answered this, right?
Yeah. It was at the Underworld in Camden.
Oh, okay. Which year was it?
2016. I think it was October. It was like late September, I think. But that's usually when me and Shem celebrate our anniversary. Is we'll go and celebrate on the date that we met at that concert.
Another comment from Hector. He mentions it's interesting how the language or cultural barriers are teared down with the music, and how artists find together many types of elements and ideas that might be complete opposite to each other and feel so natural. I admire people like you that take things from their homeland, their story, cultural influences, and compress them to their present that now is molding the future of arts. Wow,
Wow.
beautiful, beautiful saying.
I
Thanks,
have a
Hector.
tear in my eye. Wow, thank you so much. That's amazing. Wow.
Random question time. Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't know. I'm agnostic. So there's actually an incantation to summon a ghost in the new album.
Mm.
And a Mesopotamian one is a really great book by Irving Finkel called The First Ghosts, which is about like the early history of ghosts, the first recorded ghosts in Mesopotamia, and like the burial rituals and the spells and things like that. I've definitely had some like weird encounters because I have sleep paralysis and night terrors on like a semi-regular basis. So I've seen stuff. But I don't know. I don't want them to be real because it's really scary.
Hmm.
Do you?
Yeah, I was watching your AOT picks of last year, and you mentioned something about horror movies and watching some comfort movie after that. um,
We're
ac-
watching, we're watching Sunshine, and then we had to watch Ants.
right. Actually, that song is the number 6, right, on the record, last one.
Yes, yeah,
Is perhaps my favorite
amazing.
as of now. I mean, I don't know what are your habits when discovering or listening for the first time an album, but I subconsciously, unconsciously try to take a look at the duration of the tracks, you know. And when I see the longest one, I like, okay, this is the piece that I maybe is the best, I don't know, or has the potential to insert interesting passages, and I see that you decide to place them at the end, right? So let
Yeah,
me ask you, the sequencing of this album was arranged prior to finishing? You know, it has that intention?
basically, when we start writing, we just sort of throw stuff at the wall. And then once the songs start coming together, we get like an idea for the flow of the album because it's very important. So like obviously the Seed That Dreamed of Its Own Creation is in the middle because it's the slowest, doomiest track. Originally we had a different track listing going into the studio, but our producer Lewis Johns had a different idea, and I listened to him because he has like a better, because he's further away from the music, he has a better view of the bigger picture. So I trust him. And he was definitely right. At first I was like, really? And then no, he nailed it. As always, he's an amazing producer. So yeah, like Corruption on Earth was going to be the second or third track originally. But yeah, Ghazal for the Embrace of Fire, the last track, that is probably my favorite as well because it's insane. That I still don't know how we're going to play it live because it's so complicated. The time signatures on it are nuts.
Actually, I think this happened also with the second song. You sort of do an introduction of the song, but then shift the I don't know, something changed. And
Yeah.
okay, now it's starting. But well, I like that you try to do something interesting there.
We'd like to play. Yeah.
And in my experience, any of the songs, the whole track list is really interesting. And I want to ask you, because it's been 6 years since your first record released, since your last EP, and the changes are quite notable. What changed in your situation as a band, your approach to composition?
A lot changed when we released that first album. We were a very different band. We had different people, so we had a different lineup basically. So it's always been me and Shem, but we had different people on board for that album. Now we're working with like some amazing musicians. So our current drummer, Cal Constantine, is a very, very proficient technical death metal drummer, which is perfect because we love death metal. We love that aspect of the music, and you know, we're very influenced by a lot of 90s OSDM and some modern death metal bands, including Zombie, who we love, who I believe are from your neck of the woods, to a degree anyway. But yeah, so we love that kind of music, and he's when we were writing before, we were kind of limited by ourselves. We couldn't play like this yet, so it's taken us 6 years to grow as musicians, to get to the point where we can actually write more technical music. And like when you start out, you have these like grand ideas that you really want to put down, but I wasn't at a point where I could make it happen yet. So I couldn't, my vocals weren't as strong. You know, Shem's guitar technique is like absolutely insane now compared to where he was at, which was still amazing. But yeah, now he can like do all sorts of things that I don't understand. So yeah, that's the main difference, is we've grown in that way. We've become better at writing. We've had a lot of time to really develop this. Like I'm a very I'm difficult to write with in that I have very high standards. So I will put down weird rules. Like one of my rules for this album was no 4/4 time signatures unless they're extremely good. It has to be very like thought out, like not too many repetitions, except one section on the album which has loads of repetitions. So it's kind of, I feel like if you put down rules, that kind of restriction can actually make you more creative. And then when you do break it, you're breaking it in an interesting way. So I think that really helped write like an interesting album, whereas the first album was mostly just jammed out in a practice room. Even the lyrics were just, you know, it was an organic album. That one was organic and it was more simple, whereas this one is very considered.
So the band or you decided to show us the second track, which is sort of like a statement as to how different things are now, right, for the band and the new sound. But then you show us the citadel of his own creation, which is very much opposite in tone and you know, intensity. What are you excited for the people to discover about this record? What do you think is awaiting for them here?
If you're patient and you make it to the last track and you make it to the end of the last track, I think that's the best bit of the album. The very, very end. Because we went into the studio and we hadn't finished that song. And we hadn't finished that last section because it's so epic and the riff is it's a juicy riff. It's one of my favorite riffs I've ever heard.
Mine too.
Thank you. And yeah, it's Shem did an amazing job writing that. And when I heard that section, I literally spent a year trying to think of something that was good enough. And I couldn't think of anything until the second to last day of recording. So we've been in the studio for 2 weeks. And I stood in the room at like 6 p.m. the day before we were supposed to go. And I just opened my mouth, and then that was what. Basically, sometimes the best things happen when you just let it flow out of you and you don't think about it too much. And I think that's one of the most difficult parts of being creative is letting go of that control when you need to, and doing it at a high pressure moment. But it's my favorite part of the whole album. It was a very different way to how I normally sing. It was more vulnerable. And the contrast between that and the heavy riff is my favorite point. So I can't wait. I hope for people to get to that bit. I'd love to know what people think of it. But yeah, you'll have to wait a few months, unfortunately. Unless you obviously.
Diego mentions now I want to listen to the album even more. So
thanks, Diego.
I have something to comment about my experience with the record, and I think you already answered to this about getting more confident. Okay, you can be better as an artist, better abilities, you know, better techniques, but if you are not confident enough or take the risks, these things won't happen, right? And I was listening to the 5th song on the 5th track, which is, let me see, May Your Ghost Drink Pure Water, right?
Yeah.
I noticed a slightly shift in your vocal tonalities at the beginning. Like, oh, this is new in this record, slightly, you know, it's not something big. But it made me curious about exactly this thing that you're describing, about trying different things. And I'm surprised that the last song, this verse or singing happened almost by improvisation, because it's really, really cool.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I'm surprised too. And each song is different. Like a big part of when we were writing and when I was coming up with the vocals was that when it comes to that aspect is I'm not thinking about the melody, I'm tapping into the emotion behind the song. And that second to last song, May Ghost Drink Pure Water, is a very emotional song for me. So it's like partly about the passing of my grandmother. You know, the last words she spoke to me were, you know, when are you coming to Iran? And it was very emotional because, you know, obviously I couldn't, and she was too old to come and meet me somewhere else. Like, so yeah, it's a very emotional track, and I think that's there in my vocals. And a really good friend of mine, Ariana Masaya, who's also half Iranian, she came to the studio, and she's a cellist, incredible cellist, and she did the cello at the beginning of that track. So we've not actually announced that yet, so here's an exclusive for you. There's a few little bits that we're waiting until the album's out to like really show people, and one of them is her work on that track, because it's so beautiful.
Is this gonna be the third single?
No. So the third single is going to be called "Waging War Against God," and it's going to have a really good.
This is perhaps the heavier one on the album.
Yeah, I think we're going to do an album release show in October in London on the 11th, and I think we're going to film maybe Corruption on Earth to have as like a fourth single after the release. But Waging War Against God was like, that was the first finished song that we wrote for the album, and I was like, this is going to be the single. And since then, like we have the heavier songs, but I think Waging War is it's the most political song on the album, and it's the one that really was like, it kind of broke the seal on the creativity for the rest of the album, getting that one in.
This song sets the tone as a more dynamic type of composition, right? More range.
Yeah, I'm glad you think
more
so.
More flow. Actually, what I like about discovering new artists, that yes, they do fusion stuff, you know, two worlds merge together. But I also like that their metal, you know, their sound, take risks and go crazy at times, because it's not about the whole premise of, you know, Eastern influences, or the music itself is really captivating here, and that is what it's really unique. I want to say modern, but I hesitate to say modern because it might give the wrong connotation to modern heavy music, right? But it's really, to me, it sounds post-metal-ish. The riffing, the tone of it is really fresh.
I'm so glad you think so. Thank you. I mean, we weren't really sure even what genre to describe the new as, because it's I mean, obviously the second single, Seed, is very like doomy and traditional, but everything else is very like, it doesn't sound like a lot of other, I couldn't think of many band, like a single band to compare it to. You have to compare it to two bands at the same time normally to sort of get the gist. So yeah, and I'm really happy to hear that you think that about the music. Thank you.
Yeah, it made me think of a Belgian band like Psychonaut briefly.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I mean, although again, I will argue and debate that you guys bring your own sound here, and that is always exciting, you know. It may remind you to some other things, but well, I will discuss about this later in the conversation, because I have something that I would like to address to you, okay?
Sure.
For now, random question time. Okay, so you don't want to believe in ghosts because this frightens you, right?
Yeah.
But what about aliens? What about life in other planets?
100% there's life on other planets. 100%. Like, there's no way in a universe as big as we live in that there isn't at least like a bacteria on a rock somewhere that's like, you know, photosynthesizing. I mean, there's life on Earth that isn't carbon-based. There's arsenic-based life. There's life like on the bottom of the ocean, living on volcanic vents. There's got to be some like crazy stuff out there, definitely.
Yes, to that. 100% yes to that. I also want to believe.
I want to believe too. I mean, I have to. There's no way we're alone in this universe. No way.
No way. Yeah, and it's exciting to contemplate other forms of life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. it's something about our ego to think that we are alone in the universe. Like, come on, it's
No, I bet
it's impossible.
it is impossible. It is. I think it's only a matter of time before we find something, or at least see something from a distance. Like the amount of time it takes for light to reach a telescope. Like we're literally looking into the past when we look at pictures of the universe. So what's happening right now, we don't know.
I remember that last year, was it, or maybe perhaps 2022, which there were some sort of audiences in the U.S. government and officials like possibly say that I don't know how to describe it, but they talk about aliens and alien life forms, right?
Yeah.
Being discovered or observed here, which I mean, wow. So the our current way of living makes us disregard of that notion really, really fast, right? Because we are constantly being bombarded with news all over the world. But that was something big, actually.
It was, yeah, and people didn't seem to really react to it that much.
Right?
Yeah. It really confused me because I would be losing my mind if everyone else started to do that, you know.
I don't want to get conspiranoid here, but that was suspicious.
It was unusual. I have dreams about aliens a lot as well. So I hope they're friendly. I hope they're nice aliens.
Right. I know that you, at least on your covers, because I haven't read your lyrics, at least on your covers, you allude to some extraterrestrial life, right? Because it's very sci-fi inspired.
Definitely.
Is this the reason that you decided to work with Herb Scott for your artworks?
Hervé's art, it was like almost a primal instinctual decision to work with him. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, sent me L'Initiation. I hope I haven't butchered the pronunciation, for our first album, A Crypt in the Stars. And when I saw that cover, I was like, this looks like our music sounds. And all of his covers, all of his art does that. Everything he does looks like an album cover. So it's kind of impossible not to work with him. He's like the closest artist to our art that I could possibly think of. And he's a really nice person as well. He's so lovely as a human being. And he's just, you can tell he's like a true artist just from the way he speaks and the things that he shares. He's just a really, I want to go hang out with him really badly. I need to get on the Eurostar and just go to Paris and hang out with that beautiful human being. And yeah, like for this album as well, I mean, our previous two records have had his art on them, but they were kind of more, there weren't really many people or any people in that art, whereas this one, there's loads of people. And before this album, the thought of having lots of people on the cover was like something I didn't want. And for some reason, I think because just the music sounds so different, I felt like it suited, this one was the right one it suited. It was busy and full of life and color. And I think you know, with the new lineup we've got and the way we've grown as musicians, I guess I'm a lot happier now. And you know, that chaos and clash of culture and color and space and just living on the cover really embodied like how I felt about the music and the band and where we're at as musicians.
I'm watching the album cover right now, and
Nice.
it's astonishingly beautiful. It's my favorite cover this year, and there's something very hypnotic about it, you know, full of details. Did you somehow give some guidelines to the artist for this, or
no, he not at all. He didn't do this for us, even though it feels like us. No, he has a huge portfolio of work, and he's constantly doing it, and it takes him like months to draw one of these because it's all done by oil painting, and he posts his progress. It takes a really long time, and he's working every single day, hours and hours and hours. He, like, the amount of detail that he puts in, and he's usually in them. He usually paints himself in them, so he's actually on the album cover and you can find him.
Oh,
Yeah,
I will search for him.
you have to. It's great. He's in all our album covers.
So I received the email about their first single with this album cover, like in full detail, HD, and I was blown away. So I then played your single, and I was like, "Wow!" So my reaction to that was, I want to distribute this to my whole, my whole sphere of my whole circle of friends, because, and I did actually through our page, which I know that you saw that publication,
Yeah, it was amazing.
and people is really excited for this release. Let, let me read to you some of the comments here, okay? Diego is asking, were you ever part of any other music project before joining Lowen?
I was in a string quartet at school on the violin and a jazz band at school, but that was it. I was never in a proper band. This is my only band. It probably will be my only band.
Mm, make sense because it's like your own baby, right?
Yeah, it's about like my identity. And I've done some guest stuff with other bands that will be coming out next year. And like, working with them as like a guest for their project, but it's not the same as being I'm not in the band, so it's different. This is like
Yeah.
this is my main project. I will always focus on this. Yeah.
I saw a video of you improvising something with Kurokuma on a
Yeah, that
live
was really,
show. That was amazing.
it was scary. It was the most people I've ever sung in front of. I think there were like 2,000-3,000 people standing there. And yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do at all until it came out of my mouth.
What is funny about that, you came into the stage very calmly walking, like shy almost.
I
And
am
then
shy.
you burst out loud singing, and I was like, whoa, what happened there? So you received many invitations, I'm guessing, for
What
feature.
to work with artists.
Yeah,
I do, yeah. I can't say yes to everything. I try to.
right.
I think this year I've done like 3 guest slots already. I'm about to do a fourth one in September. So I'm busy. It's nice, but I have to also make time for myself and for, make sure I'm giving Lowen enough attention and getting enough rest.
And how do you pick and choose which projects to work with?
It really depends. It's got to be, it just needs to feel right. And I've definitely I think I need to get better at saying no sometimes as well, because sometimes I overcommit and I want to be able to give everything my best. But there's some really exciting ones. There's one band, I think I can say it now. It's Wyatt E. Do you know them? They're Belgian.
YT, yeah.
I love Wyatt E. They're kind of the closest band to Lowen. They just don't normally have vocals. And they literally flew me to Spain to do this incredible music video, which is coming out next year. I can't wait to see
Oof.
it. Like literally dancing on the top of mountains as the sun is going down, and we woke up at like 3 a.m. to go and climb the mountain to see dance in front of it when the sun came up. It was one of the best experiences ever. It was so cool, and they're really good people as well.
For a second, I thought of Ori Wyatt's son. I think they are from Scotland.
Oh,
Or,
right. I know them.
they released a song fairly recent, and I thought of that one first. But yeah, YT, double T, right?
Yes, yeah, double T, Y-E. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for that to be released.
Thank
I want to ask you about how you observe people react to the new songs or your sound as a whole. Because, for example, I watched something in YouTube about your previous EP, like acoustic performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, how would you describe how people react to your music, the audience?
Usually a bit confused at first. Or surprised. There have been times like usually when we play live, people are like completely silent for the first song because they're kind of processing what's going on. Usually it's good. I mean, I've had people crying in a good way, I think, because it's emotional.
Yeah.
Usually, like I haven't had like a negative review yet. I'm sure I will. Yeah, it's been really good. I love usually hearing what people think, and it's been really nice so far. Just confusion and surprise, I think.
Let me ask you, you having your own review show and also being on the other side with artistic, endeavors and such, do you see like something positive out of the whole circle of reviews?
What kind of reviews?
Do you see something like positive or with value, the whole circuit of reviews?
Do I think reviewing music is positive and has value?
Yeah, definitely. That was the right wording.
I have musicians hearing. Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, because I think a big part of why I review music is to like connect with people, to have fun with the people I'm reviewing it with, because it's like a social thing. I get together with our guitarist Shem, he's like filming it, and then like basically our best friend Floyd, who's just passionate about music too. So for me, reviewing music is like having a conversation with someone. It's like probably the same kind of conversation you'd have in a pub, and I'm not really I don't know if it's a good thing, but I'm not focusing on the audience when I'm doing that. And I used to write reviews, and I don't think I was very good at writing the reviews, because I felt like I was just saying the same thing after a while, and it was really difficult to feel like it when you feel like it's a job to listen to the new music. It's more difficult to enjoy it. Yeah. So it's a really interesting. I've not really spoken about this to many people, but you get it, so it's cool. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Now I definitely have a much better relationship with it, because I was reviewing music was like, oh, I thought this was how I was gonna meet musicians and get to go to shows and understand the music industry way before I thought I was gonna be a musician. So that was my way of like getting close to the music. But now I don't have that pressure almost. I can enjoy it a lot more. And I think it's healthy as a musician to listen to as much new music as you can, because I think when you stop doing that, it's harder to be creative, because I'm not necessarily like actively letting myself be influenced by it, but hearing what other people are doing I think it's healthy. I think when you're examining why did they make that choice, or who were they influenced by, or even if you don't agree with it, like how they're presenting themselves and their music is really interesting, because it makes you think about what you're doing too.
Yeah, like being aware of what kind of sounds are existing today or are being made, right? That is important as an artist, as a creative artist. So you have been writing reviews before the band?
Yeah, I started writing reviews when I was 15.
Interesting. And so I'm guessing that appreciation for you and the people who does review has changed, or is different, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm probably better at writing reviews than when I was a teenager. I think I was passionate back then. It probably shone through, but I was like one of the first people in the UK to like write reviews for Metal Injection when I was about 16, 17. I did it for a few years.
Wow.
But yeah, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Let me ask you. Well, let me read some of the comments here, okay? Because it will be rude not to.
I'd love to hear what people are saying.
Okay, so people are asking about the album cover. We already tackled on that. But Diego says, what I love most about the cover art is how crazy it is, but at the same time, how cohesive it feels. Though it's crazy as heck, I feel it still makes sense in a way that is quite difficult to describe. Yeah, that's my whole appreciation of it. I can't put my finger on it, but it's mesmerizing.
Amazing. Thank you, Diego. That's a really cool way to describe it. I think that's totally right. It is all connected somehow, even though there's so much going on. It's really impressive. Like, I think the really popular art at the moment is like very minimalist. There's a lot of space. There's it's very moody and dark, and I think this is very different. And I love that kind of art too. I love art. I'm always like keeping up with artists too. But yeah, Hervé is something special. I think he's slipped through the cracks of legendary artistry, because he should be as famous as Geiger or Beksinski. He's just so talented. I don't understand why he's not like mega famous. I don't get it.
The world of art is full of injustice.
That's an amazing line. You're
Another
so right.
another appreciation of the album cover. The cover has many layers and can't see all in one site. Has a Garden of the Light Bosch atmosphere, yet
Hell yeah.
space and abstract taken to the earth. Like some demons to others might be gods to others. Right?
Amazing.
Interesting. Diego is asking, I wonder, how do you research music? How do you find new music? Are you the sort of person that takes the time to scroll until you find something that catches your attention?
I can be, yeah. That's a good question. I follow a lot of people on Instagram with really good music taste. And oftentimes they'll share something or have a cool cover or a cool song name. Sometimes people send me music and I will check it out and I'll be like, that's great, you know. And like Zon Pantley, when they came out, I think I saw like the album cover for the first album, which I can't pronounce the name of at all. But yeah, that I saw that and I saw what they were doing and I was like, that's going to be good. I knew it was going to be good. There are some labels, you know, I mean, Church Road are a good example. Like they're going to put out good stuff. There's some American labels that put out good stuff like Willow Tip. I think it's an interesting question. Sometimes it will be some merch, like Frozen Soul. I saw their merch and I was like, I want to like this band because their merch is really good. You know, sometimes it's something that simple, but yeah, I do keep up with like what's being released. I'll look at stuff and I'll see what people are talking about. I'll see, you know, sometimes it's festivals like the UK festivals, like what they're putting, like Damnation, what they put on the undercard, or Hellfest is a great place. I've discovered a lot of bands through like their temple and their altar stages and things like that.
Thank you, Diego, for that question because it was really a good question, and I was hoping to talk about this actually. So the idea of Serpent Temple, what can you tell me about? I mean, I want people here to go and discover the Serpent Temple. What can you tell me about it?
It was basically born during COVID. There's many podcasts where you know we went and not only, but we went to like
mine as well.
Nice. I mean, I think that was the time where we realized like music is a priority, and you know it's a great way to connect with people. And me, Shem, and Floyd, we're so passionate about music. We're always talking about music. We're always finding new music, and we like. I really love talking to different people. You know, people like you, people who write about music, people who are in the industry in some way. Is it if they're like a PR or they work in A&R, or like obviously artists. So they're, you know, some of the most interesting people around are people who are passionate about art and who keep up with it, because they're usually not only into music, they'll be into film, they'll be into artists, and it's just so nice to like talk to people and exchange ideas and recommendations and things like that. So yeah, the podcast grew out of that, and then the Psycards, Shem's mum in like, she had this Psycard set from literally the 70s, and we still use the booklet but not the cards because they're literally like antiques now. And we did a Psycard reading together, and it was really like, it was amazing. It was like therapy, and it was a really good way to sort of just talk about stuff that's really deep, like death. But then not only that, the actual structure of the reading changes the way that you interact with those archetypes. So I thought it was a really great way to talk to musicians, because musicians are deep people, and it's a really interesting. I find it really difficult to talk to people on a normal basis. Like I'm probably a little bit autistic or something. I'm a bit awkward usually with small talk and like any conversation that isn't about music. So I thought it was a great way to just sort of ask really personal questions, but then if they didn't want to get personal, they didn't have to, and you could still relate it to composition or creativity. But then sometimes it would be really deeply personal, like it would be about grief, or like near-death situations and things like that.
That happens to me too. You know, I am awkward with small talk. I tend to go deep with my questions.
It's much more interesting. Like small talk is, I just don't know how to do it. I just want to ask what you know, what do you think happens when you die, or like, you know, when did you last cry and stuff like that. I'm way more interested in that.
You just guessed my next question. What do you think happened when we die? Do you believe in reincarnation?
I think think about this every day, like every day when I wake up, before I go to sleep, when I'm drinking my tea in the morning, I'm always thinking about death. All my music is about death.
Mm.
There's a line in the album which is like, basically, when I think about this, there's a line, it's why do we grasp at eternity when we know it will leave us behind? Because we're gonna be forgotten, that like there's no immortality, and that's scary, but then I guess it's also good. What I want to happen when I die, and what I believed when I was a kid, was that I would be like, I would float, my consciousness would float away in a little bubble, and then it would like go into someone's belly and I'd be born again. And that's what I wanted to be reincarnated. And I believed in reincarnation for a really long time. Now I think I'm just going to be reabsorbed into the earth, and my atoms will be recycled. And maybe I'll be like 1% of someone else's consciousness, if I'm lucky. I did have a near-death experience many years ago, where I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and the light kept getting bigger and bigger. And just before I could breathe again and I woke up, I saw like a hospital room, and I was being born again. So that was kind of funny. And I kind of hope that's real, because it would be nice to just straight away get back out there. But I don't think that's likely. It's probably just going to be like when you're under anesthetic and you're not dreaming, but you are asleep, you're just unconscious. It's probably going to be like that. What do you think?
I want to make a couple of observations about that. Let me try to get the correct wording here.
Sure.
First, I a few years ago I talked about the fact that we are aware of our own mortality makes us try to be the best here, right? To grasp and become and evolve and do the most of it. But how would it be our own life if we weren't aware of our own mortality? How different would it be, our approach to life every day? And it made me think of dogs, for example. You know, dogs are not aware of death. If I died tomorrow and my dog doesn't see me anymore, he just wouldn't see me anymore, right? I disappeared. And dogs are very happy animals or species, and because they are not aware of their own mortality, right? So yeah, it's fascinating to think about how will it. I mean, I sometimes, well, years ago I got high and I was thinking, what would happen to humanity if 100 years in the future we got rid of the notion of death, right? Like, it's taboo. We don't talk about death. Just live for as long as you want, and people are not aware what will change after that. But that's just a silly observation. And also another thing that, as you were speaking, I forgot about that. So yeah, maybe I remember later in the conversation. I want to suggest you an artist that I think it will resonate with you. His family is from Chile, South America.
Okay.
And they immigrate to Sweden. And he is an artist, metal artist, and he had like a life like close to that experience. I don't know what's the right pronunciation. And he decided to make a project called Maulin, which is about exactly like as you described, bring his own heritage to the music, and it's really, really beautiful. It's called Maulin. I can send it for you later. It's very hypnotic, and the way it's produced is like underground in old, I don't know, basement. Well, no, that's not basement. It's like a bunker from the times of war, and the acoustic of that album is really, really fascinating.
Wow, I can't wait to hear that. That sounds amazing.
Another thing I was gonna ask you about. Well, it's time to get serious, perhaps. I know that two of the songs of this album talk about the woman life freedom movement in Iran. And my notion to that is raising awareness through music or doing political activism, perhaps through music. Do you think of your own work as political activism?
Just by sort of existing as a musician, it is kind of political activism, because in Iran it's illegal for women to sing unaccompanied. I do that, and by unaccompanied, like the first album starts with me singing unaccompanied, so that's illegal. You can get killed for that. Heavy metal is illegal in Iran, so for me, just being in this band is political activism. And like I try not to be too upfront in the music about it, but it's there. So if you choose to approach it that way, it's quite clearly there. But then also I use metaphor, I use fantasy and science fiction, because I think that's the perfect space to explore it. And I'm not often direct when it comes to lyrics and music in that way. Not often, I am at times. But I think, yes, it was very important to me to raise awareness about the women life freedom movement, because when it happened, it affected me very much. It affected my family. I had family members who were trapped in Iran when it happened, and they couldn't come back, and I didn't know if I was going to ever see them again because of all the violence. For those who might not know all the details, the women life freedom movement started when Mahsa Amini was murdered by police. She was a young woman, by the morality police of Iran. She had like this much hair showing in her hijab, and she was just killed because of that. And I don't think people should be killed for those things. I don't think it's right to oppress people. The regime in Iran has been oppressing people since 1979, and it's why I'm here, because my family had to flee. So it's it's a big deal for me, and I very much hope for revolution. I hope for freedom. I'm as many people in the diaspora are, we're always hoping for a free Iran. And I have so much respect for all the women who basically poured out onto the streets and who've been protesting for about over 2 years now, almost. The anniversary was, I think, October 16th, when she was killed. And we actually played a show on that day, a year later, which was very emotional. I was crying on stage. Yeah, so it's kind of, it's something that I don't want people to forget. That there are things happening in the world that are as pressing right now, but this is, something that it's important to remember. It's important to raise awareness, and the regime has stayed their hand from executing people when people have been more aware of what's going on there, and that's happened recently. They've arrested some rappers. There was a rapper called Tumaj who nearly was executed. And there are musicians who have not been so lucky. And they have been killed, and the way they've done it is just awful. So it's heartbreaking, and I think it's important to me to raise that awareness. I know some people don't want to engage politically with that kind of thing. I don't want to force anyone to do that. It's important for me, but you can absolutely engage with LOWEN without doing that. But just existing as a band is a huge fuck you to the regime. It's a huge fuck you to people who support the regime as well, and who've said some pretty nasty things to me for just mentioning that's the case. So yeah, but overall, we've had amazing support from people, and it's a privilege that I can be a musician. And as horrible as it's been not being able to go to Iran, I'm very grateful that I can play music, and it's amazing that I have that choice.
And you remain hopeful. I mean, this comes from tragic, from perhaps rage to see what's going on out there, but you remain hopeful, because I sense a pinch of hope in your voice and in your music, right? Yeah,
there's always hope. There has to be hope. That I may never go in my whole lifetime, but it won't be like this forever. Nothing is forever, even tyranny. So the regime will fall. There is nowhere around that. You can't. The young people in Iran, most of them are as angry, if not way angrier than me. And since the death of Massa and the death of many people like her before and after that occurred, there have been people fighting, and there will always be people fighting. And I think if this music makes one person know more about what's happening there, and one person say something, thank you, say something about that, that's a huge deal for me. At least I've done something, and then I can sleep at night. I'm doing something to help people over there, even if it's a tiny thing. At least that's something that I've done. So yeah, I'm grateful I can do that.
And stand and keep fighting. There's a comment for you here.
Yeah.
I often talk about how in extreme music as a whole, it's very physical, and artists offers their own health, because the endurance and the way they expose themselves it comes with risks, right? But in your case, I mean, or artists from Iran or these countries, they literally put their life at risk, right? For the right to express themselves and fight and spread awareness. So yeah, I applaud you. I admire you, and also, I mean, it's about the message, it's about the intention behind, but also the art of it is the art form of your music is really, really special. So congratulations for that. And yeah, just I wanted to express that to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your appreciation. Thank you so much for being open. It's really nice. This has been really cool. I love that we're getting to talk to you and to the other side of the world right now. It's been really special.
There's a question for you here, okay?
Yeah.
I have a question regarding this. I want to be careful with the way I word my question. As a woman who left her country and is actively involved in the music industry, particularly as a vocalist in a metal band, do you perceive an obligation to engage in activism, shed light on pertinent issues, and raise awareness? I truly appreciate music projects like LOWEN.
So your question boils down to, as I understand it, do you think there is an obligation as an artist who's gone through something like that to raise to be active? I think the obligation is there if you decide it's there. I don't think it's up to anybody else to say to another person, you should do this or you should do that. I think politics should always be at its heart an individual choice, because once you take that choice away, I think that starts making it into a tyranny. And I think all opinions are valid, but I think the moment you start forcing those things on people, then you're kind of taking away how effective what you're communicating is, or how important it is. Because I think I don't think it's ever helpful to force anyone to do something or know something or feel and think a certain way, because even if what you're trying to give them is good, or the information you're trying to give them is a really, really good thing, I think it's always better to give people the option to approach that themselves, because then they're open to it, and it's very difficult. It's a really good question, because I really want to word it the right way too, because I feel like there's really something there, and I've never really said this out loud, but yeah, I think sometimes people get so passionate about what they're trying to do, which is bring justice into the world. And of course, everyone is passionate about justice and right and wrong and good and bad. But I think you need to direct that passion in a way that is easier for other people to engage with. And not that you should, but I think that's what I think. I feel like this is more effective than me doing other kinds of activism or being political. It's really difficult. I've gone through experiences where I've said things that I've regretted, or I've been too aggressive and things like that. I've gone through a huge journey to get to this point, and I think maybe I'll change my mind at some point. And I certainly think that my version of what's aggressive is totally different to someone else's version. And there are absolutely people who think I am really aggressive and really like, you know, right on and political and stuff. And that's fine. They can think that. But I hope that I'm doing it in a way that's accessible. I guess that's the word, accessible, because I think sometimes people get really into like nomenclature, like some people really into like certain words and terms that aren't always accessible to everyone. And politics is about everyone, you know, the polis, it's the city, it's the people, you know, it's how you live, and everyone is involved in that. And all music, and to a degree all art, is engaging with that in some way, even if it's not the intention of the artist. You can make anything political, just being apolitical is a stance, you know, all this stuff. So it's a really huge topic. It's really complicated, and I think each situation is different. So I do feel an obligation to a degree. I think I'm honoring my family by saying what's happening there. I think I'm honoring people who have not had the choices and the privileges that I've had. And this is my very small and insignificant, because I'm not, what I'm doing isn't, I don't want to make myself important. I don't want it to be like that. I'm trying to shine a light and to raise some awareness and give back what's been given to me, you know, to a degree, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't, but
it does. And
yeah.
what is great about this is that your music is inspiring this conversation to address these topics. But it's not only about that. I mean, for people who want to engage in this conversation, this is here, right? But it's also beautiful. It's also inspired in your culture and in your ethos of your country, and the music is also really, really good. So to mix all these things together is, I think, what makes this record great. And it's also about your evolution as an artist. And yeah, all of these things. I'm sure people will love this record, and it's already my favorites this year, honestly. I don't say that lightly, because, I mean, I'm sure you understand this. You want to be honest with the artist in front of you, right? You don't want to lie to them.
Yeah, I appreciate. Thank you for the really kind words. It's an honor, honestly. The work that Church Road Records and They Bear Recordings have done to sort of get our album out there before the release has been amazing. And I've gotten to meet some really amazing journalists like you, and to talk to people that I would never have been able to talk to otherwise. It's a real honor. It's very kind of you, and yeah, I hope that people enjoy this when it comes out.
I'm sure they will. And for the last part of the conversation, if you will, I want to have fun with you as another enthusiast of string music as a whole, since I learned about Serpent Temple. It is about, did you have like favorite records this year so far?
Favorite records this year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've not been very good at keeping up with new releases this year, you know. Oof, this is a good question. This is one of those things where people ask you what bands you like and you forget everything.
Yeah, it happens to me too.
Yeah, I'm really bad at this. Oh, I know. I have listened to some really good new albums this year. I'm kind of a year behind at the moment. So I listened to the new Harm's Way record this year, which came out in 2023. It was like the end of 2023. That was really good. I'm sort of slowly getting into hardcore at the moment. What else? I know the new Wormed album. I think, yeah, I've heard that's really good. I'm going to be listening to that in a minute. I really enjoyed the Enslaved album that came out also last year, which I hadn't really had a chance to properly listen to until this year. I know I'm missing out something really obvious that I've been listening to, and I just can't remember what it is.
News on Pantley.
News on Pantley came out this year. Beating the Drums of Ancestral Force. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know of Crypt Sermon?
Yeah, Crypt Sermon are great. That's cool.
Their new record is really, really cool. Let me ask you about something that I shared in your top picks of last year. I was very attentive of yours and your partner choices. I want to ask you about Baroness. You mentioned that it's your favorite record, or one of your favorite bands.
Yeah.
What do you think about Gold and Gray?
Oh my God. Oh, you put me on the spot. Like, I love all their records. I love all their records. There's not one that I don't like. I really Golden Grey, that's one of the like that's an upbeat one, right? That's like
It's the previous one, Gold and Gray.
one. Okay. I think the most the Stone is the most recent. I know I prefer Stone to Golden Grey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I prefer Stone. I think it's like their new era.
Oh.
The albums are, but it's controversial. Yeah.
Okay.
What did you think?
That's cool. What I was gonna say is that that record, Gold and Gray, is very controversial for the choices in production and the sound, but to me is their best of the Colors era, and you may disagree with that, but to me the what I've discovered there, the ideas is very ambitious, and yeah, I was one of the people who fought for the right to be, acknowledged as one of their best records.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna listen to it after this interview. I'm gonna like really listen to it and then listen to Stone next to each other because I very rarely do that. So yeah, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna think of what you said and listen to the production because I'm very curious now.
Yeah, Gold and Gray. And okay, so for this part of the interview or the conversation, I want to show you one song that I want to recommend to you. Okay, just give me 1 second to share the screen here. Okay, is this one? Let me know when you can see my screen, okay?
Got like a little. I can see it.
Okay, so the band is called, or it translates as Sleepwalker.
Oh, are they Japanese?
It's spread from Japan, Russia, and United States.
Wow.
They are an anonymous act. We don't know them, who they are. And this is my favorite from last year.
Hell yeah.
It's psychedelic, and they mixed very different elements. It's very alien sounding. Anyway, we can go back later after to hear it, okay?
Okay, let's go. That was amazing. Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Earth and like Jambinai, who are a Korean band.
Oh, Jambinai, yeah.
Yeah, I love Jambinai. I love them. And yeah, Earth, of course, like it reminded me of Printing in the Infernal Method, which is like they're more like Southern inspired, I guess. But yeah, that was really interesting. So beautiful. I love the like really, it was really heavy, really slow, different. I really like the music video as well.
And they have a curve of evolution. They started as a raw black metal band, and they got to this point where it's really, really interesting. And I interviewed one of them last year over the course of 3 months by email, and we were having a conversation about how extreme music or art in general can be perceived as a continuous conversation. For example, perhaps I wouldn't appreciate enough LOWEN if I haven't listened something similar before, prior to that, right? So like an evolving language, the street music, as a listener, perhaps. I don't know if you agree with that.
I do. There's like it's like that with literature. If you kind of have to read your Greek mythology to really appreciate Shakespeare, for example. I think it's like I think books kind of talk to each other. There's this idea of intertextuality, and I think it's the same in music where you can hear like a dialogue between bands and throughout time with their own music. I think that's a really good point. Yeah, totally. I think the more you listen to and the more you read and the more you watch, the more you see and like can make those extra connections and really appreciate the finer details of something. But you don't have to. You can still love a band for who they are. And I think that's what makes some bands more mainstream than others. I think the easier it is often to get into a band, the less you need to have that prior knowledge necessarily.
Definitely. So I'm glad that you like it. Hopefully you
Yeah,
can revisit them in your own time.
I'm going to 100%. That's so cool. Sleepwalkers.
Sleepwalker. They are from
Sleepwalkers.
Century Ruin Laboratories Records.
Amazing.
Do you have one for me that you would like to share today?
Oh my gosh. Do you know a prog band called Carmen?
Camel.
Carmen. So they are an American prog band from the 70s and they fused flamenco with prog metal.
Interesting.
They have an album called Fandangos in Space.
Is the name Carmen or Camel?
Carmen, so it's Carmen. And the album, yeah, I think the best song, I mean, you don't play the whole song because it's really long. Maybe just
okay.
like but yeah, I think, what's a good one? Shit. I mean, their best album is Fandangos in Space. That's what I would say.
Fandangos in Space. Let me write it down. So yeah, I was excited to show you this band because there are some resemblance with fusion worlds apart, you know, and yeah, it's really interesting, and also because in your topics of last year, I noticed the lack of black metal.
Yeah, I'm not.
I don't know if you like black metal as a whole.
I used to go to a lot of underground black metal shows. I used to go to like 2 or 3 a week when I was a student. And I think I just sort of maxed out on black metal. I think it's just not. I do like some black metal bands, like I like Enslaved, if you can call them black metal. I'd say, you know, I like the more sort of groovy death metal crossover black metal. But no, like I don't really vibe with a lot of it. Like there's some that I do like. I did like Agalok for a long time. Yeah, I listened to a lot of it when I was growing up, but I think now I mostly listen to like death metal, hardcore. I've always listened to prog. I love like 70s proto metal, 60s proto metal. It's a lot. I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. I listen to a lot of classical as well and some jazz. So yeah, but black metal is, I have to really be in a very particular mood.
As an artist, do you think that is important as you evolved with your craft to also evolve as a listener?
That's a good question. I recently interviewed a good black metal band called 1349, and we interviewed Cedarman, and he hasn't listened to any new music since 1997, which I can respect. I think it's very difficult in a way to sort of keep yourself in that era, and maybe for what he's doing, that actually helps to not be listening to the new stuff. But I don't think that would work for me. I think I thrive on diversity. I think that's really important. I think it's much easier to be creative for me that way. Maybe it's different. I know there are like artists and designers who, when they're designing or composing, they don't listen to any other music. So when I'm writing, it depends where in the writing stage I am. Like right now, I'm devouring everything. But when I'm actually writing and I'm doing vocals, I do try not to listen to other music because I don't want to accidentally copy someone. I want it to be me. I want it to be as pure as it can be. So I do think there are times where you kind of have to just put the blinkers on and not think about anything else. And then naturally it's going to come through all the things you've picked up along the way. But I do think I think I do my best work when I'm actively creative, because you have to be, I think it takes creativity to listen to new music, because you've got to open yourself up in the same way that you do when you are writing or creating or making art and things like that.
And I don't know if this happens to you, but when you are on my side, enjoying music and you know, with the enthusiasm of discovering it. For you as a composer, is there any moment like, oh, I know people is gonna love this part? Oh, you know, are you adventurous with that?
I think definitely when you've crossed that bridge, when you do end up listening to music, you are dissecting all of the artistic choices. So you, like sometimes I can like sit back and not do that, but especially if it's new music, I'm thinking of the choices they've made. I'm like, why, you know, I wonder why like they've put this here, or oh, I love how they've been playful and they've done this section, and I find that to be quite fun. If it's good music, sometimes if it's like, sometimes I can be critical. I have notes.
That is also that is also fun.
It can be fun. It can be fun to tear something apart, but I would never do that publicly because I don't think that's fair to the artist. But I do enjoy critiquing, but I think when I'm on the podcast, I only try and say positive things because I don't want it's not my place to turn around to another artist and be like, I would have done this, 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 and this. It's like, it's not my art. They've made that choice, and it's like, I respect that. You know, even if I don't like it myself, I respect that they've gone through with that. There aren't many. It's rare, like that I get that passionate. But yeah, I do think about that a lot of the time. I think once you have a certain once you've pulled back the curtain, like you can't help but see all the invisible strings and wires, and it's a bit different. And I think whenever like when you start working somewhere, it's like amazing and new, and then after a few months it becomes normal. It can be that like that too, but I think it's important to kind of try and preserve that curiosity and joy and creativity and the childlike wonder. I still have that, thankfully.
I try to preserve that too, for me as well. There is one like a guitar solo on the 5th song on this record that is just for a few seconds, a brief moment, that I loved the tone of it. I don't know if the guitar or I don't know what happened, but I noticed a guitar solo there, and it's also one of my favorite bits on the record.
Amazing. So it's like, it's not the beginning, it's like in the song.
Yeah, perhaps the second half of it.
Oh, okay. There is a lot of guitar synth on this album, so it could be something like that. I was very anti-synth when we started working because I'm very fussy with tone, and this album has some great synth on it, so I'm very happy with how it sounds. I'm really happy to hear you like that bit.
And I loved your decision to work with Ariana. I discovered her through her collaboration with Countless Skies.
Oh, amazing. Beautiful.
Yeah. I have 2 last questions for you today, okay?
Sure.
So I hope this is a fun question for you. If you could create a one-off show with 3 bands, having LOWEN in the middle, like at the conjuncture of the beginning and the end, which bands will go first and which one will go last?
Oh my gosh, that's so okay. Headliners. I'm gonna go current bands. Oh my god, this is so hard. We're in the middle. I mean, I'd love to play with System of a Down. And I'd love to play with Opeth.
Okay.
I don't know what I'd put them in. I think we'd work as a middle band.
Yeah, this is to go wild with the imagination and the possibilities. I love that answer. System of a Down and Opeth.
System of a Down and Opeth. Other bands like Enslaved or Electric Wizard, I'd love to play with those guys. I guess we'd have to choose a smaller band to open for us, but whatever. Like, no, I'd just have Opeth open for us.
I mean, let's put the business of it aside and just go with the pure artistic expression of each band and curate that night as such.
I mean, yeah, I would love to. I would love to play with those bands on a selfish level. I'd love to play with System of a Down, Akakoka. I guess those were the bands that got me into this situation that I'm in now. So I guess Akakoka, Lowen, and then System of a Down. It would be the weirdest lineup in the world, but I would really enjoy that night.
Well, to some people, the weirder the better. And speaking for
Why
myself.
not?
Okay,
That would be
last question. If I know that this book is it's been influenced by the book of Iran, Iranish
yeah,
storytelling. But if you could compare or assimilate what you have in your mind about these records with another form of work that already exists, like a book, well, perhaps not a book, a movie or a painting, a sculpture, anything beyond music, which one will it be and why?
Oh, that's a really good question. So a film that really influenced me when I was writing this album, is a film called The White Meadows, which is an Iranian film. I believe it came out in 2011. I don't know if you're familiar with like Jodorowsky. It's like a very, very like surrealist film. It's about a man that is
The Holy Mountain, right?
yeah, of course, Holy Mountain, El Topo, all that stuff. Amazing. A huge Jodorowsky fan. But this film, The White Meadows, it's by an Iranian director. And when he released the film, it did so well. He got, I think, I believe it was in Cannes. So he got an award. And as a result, the Iranian regime, I think they tried to put him in prison for making a good film. So they didn't like it. But the film is stunning. It's so it's just high art. The sound design in the film is beautiful. Like everything is delicious to listen to. And the plot is very difficult to describe. It's not really like a narrative driven. There is a narrative, but it's really up to you to view it in that way. And I love it when it's up to you how you engage with something. You have that choice to go really deep or just to take it at face value. And it's stunning. It's as all Iranian films are. There are moments where you'll be horrified and crying, but then there are moments of just it's unusual. It's an unusual film. It's not light viewing, but it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's set in the salt flats of Iran, and there are these things called tear catchers, which are sort of evolved in the Iranian courts, where when the king would go hunting, they'd have these beautifully shaped vials to catch the tears of his harem. And when he came back, he could see who loved him the most, who'd filled their tear jar the most. And this man is going from village to village between these islands made of salt, on this like flat sea, on these salt flats, and he's collecting the tears of villagers and he's using them to absolve them of their sin. And it's just beautiful. And every place has its own sort of culture, like a mini culture and its own story. And there's like an artist who paints the sky as green, and everyone's like, no, the sky's blue. And he's like, no, but the sky is actually green, and this is how I'm painting it. And his metaphor isn't accepted, and as a result, he's blinded. So there are these like moments in the film that are really powerful in an artistic way. And it's a stunning piece of art. I recommend it if you're into that thing.
Well, I'm gonna be watching it today. Is it on internet, right? On YouTube or I don't know.
It's on YouTube. It should be on YouTube. Type in The White Meadows, I think 2011. It should come up.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of people in black coats in the desert.
Yeah.
It sounds like poetic surrealism, and I do like when a movie plays with our senses or a logical construction of things, to mess with that. Well, thank you for that suggestion. I will be watching it today. And one last question for you. Sorry.
That's okay. I love it.
You mentioned in this video of your topics of last year about South American bands, and it made me curious about which bands do you like or would you recommend to us from this side of the world?
I mean, I would not. I would assume that you know all of the bands that I would say. Off the top of my head, I don't remember half of them, but there was a really good South American band we found just by pressing random on Metal Archives. I can't
Okay.
remember what it's called. Oh my God. It was like, I think it was Elven something. Oh no. I feel really bad because they were amazing. I mean I love Zompantly. They're based in America, but they sing about like the indigenous cultures of Mexico. I believe.
Which
I stand to be
which,
corrected.
which
You know
band? Sorry.
Zompantly? It's Zompantly, Zompl.
Oh, some Pantley.
There you go. Yeah, I
Some
was just
Pantley.
pronouncing. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I love them. They're one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, the record is from this year, right?
That's right. Yeah, so good.
Yeah. Actually, I think of them when you mentioned Chibalba on your top.
I love Xibalba. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let me suggest you a band from Chile. It's called Selbst. It's from the
Okay,
record label Devemur Morty.
cool.
Uh, I I hope you like it. It's really really good. It's one of our champions this year.
Cool. Please send it to me. I'll listen to it. There's a band from Chile. I went to Chile for one day. I was in Chile for one day. It was
Okay,
amazing. Dimonauta. They're really good.
okay, okay.
They were fantastic.
You haven't come to Mexico, right?
No, I would love to come to Mexico. Mexico has like a Una Jam as well that I'd love to go to.
Will Lowen like to go to come to play here in Mexico?
Yes, please. Yes, we would love to.
We would love to have you here, definitely.
It would be an honor. Yeah, I'd love to come. If we can like we will come to absolutely. I mean it would just be amazing to play outside of Europe. We've only played one show outside of the UK, which was in Ireland. So I mean 2 shows in Ireland. But yeah, it would be amazing to play at any country outside of Europe, especially like Mexico or South America. I noticed when I was in Peru and Chile, like there's an incredible metal scene. And I of course it's going to be the same across the entire continent. So yeah, I'd love to come and hang out and see what it's like.
And you know, and European crowds are spoiled because they can watch any band they want to. But over here, it's almost like a dream at times, you know, to watch a band live. So we are very appreciative of any band that comes here. So given time, if Lowen comes to Mexico and South American countries, I'm sure that you will have an unforgettable experience.
I'm certain. I love South America. I love like Mesoamerica. It would be a true honor to be able to come and play there. And I've heard so many good things about the fans and the crowds from the people I've spoken to who have played. So it would be amazing to experience that. It would be like a really big deal for us as a band to be able to do that.
Okay, Nina, thank you for your time today. I take 1 hour and a half, maybe 2, but your time. But it was really, really fun, and thank you for your good disposition.
Oh, it was a pleasure. It was so nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to everyone who asked a question in the comments. That's really cool. Everyone was so nice.
Let me see. Okay, there's another comment here. Please come to US. I will buy all your merch.
Please.
And what an amazing interview. Oh, thank you for that. I take that compliment, a palm in the back.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much. We'd love to play the US as well. Like the US is a really cool place to go play.
Well, guys, thank you for watching. Please be aware of their upcoming record. It's really, really good. And we're going to be talking about that a lot more here. Bye-bye.